everybody, this is Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got John Arch of Arch Matheos. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Anytime, man. Good to be with you.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. I was just checking out Winter Ethereal, and it is absolutely a beautiful record. Do you just want to give a rundown on how the making of the record was?
Wow. Yeah, pretty much. In the same fashion as Jim is, and I have always worked together. We just kind of hit it. Like I asked him, which is kind of unorthodox. Usually he asks me to do things musically, but this time I think I was just coming off of doing those shows and those DVDs, and we're just talking. And I asked him. I said, maybe I have another one or two left in me, and him having two in a row with Fate's Warning. I think it was kind of refreshing where. Him working with me is kind of a different animal, I guess, and creatively, probably a good thing for both of us. So unlike Sympathetic Resonance, this was pretty much like a blank slate that was destined for an Arch Matheos. And probably the only thing that we did differently here was a little bit a different approach for the musicians, whereas we ran into, a little bit of static last time when we had Bobby and Joey playing on the album. Who wouldn't want them two musicians? They're awesome and great to have them. But, of course, there was the affiliation with Fate's Warning. And how people, the fans talk and, whatever. There's two sentences and it broke into a fist fight on Facebook. So we pretty much said, let's try to avoid all the the drama and the association with Fate's Warning, and let's make sure that it's understood that, the musicianship this time. But then it ended up where Joey and Bobby saw that there were going to be other musicians playing on the album, and they said, well, if, I'll do one or two. And so it worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
Whereas, we got to have I was really super stoked when both of them said that they would do a couple songs, and then plus having all the other talent that Jim had brought forth to play on the album. And so I guess to answer your question, and other than that, it's like one step at a time, the way we normally work in a studio with Jim. He has his own studio, very comfortable environment. It's like a second home to me. So, Jim gets into his own head, into his own place of I got a phone call coming in, I think. But so he gets into his head and writes the compositions for me, and then I work in the same way. I take them and I interpret them emotionally and maybe a little intellectually first, content. And that's what we go. We take it, and we run with it. And before you know it, we're waist deep in it, and there was no turning back.
Yeah, I feel like from listening to this record, it was a very experimental record. There's a lot of different elements in here. It's fair to say that Arch Matheos is really meant to try new things, right? That's what you guys thrive off of?
Absolutely. We really don't. We don't have any predestined plan when we get together. We know that we are going to take it one step at a time, and we're going to see what happens. We don't go in, assuming anything, I guess is the way I want to say it. We go in saying, okay, let's get together, let's see what happens, and hopefully, things will turn out okay. And that's what happens. And it seems before you know it, either the chemistry's still going to be there between us as far as writing is concerned, or it's not. And it seemed like, whenever Jim came up with something, I immediately took a hold of it. And with the exception of one or two things he wrote that didn't quite hit me, we just started working on something new. But that's just the way things work.
Yeah. Now, how different of a mind frame or songwriting process is Arch Matheos as opposed to with Fate's Warning? Is it a completely different game? Because I feel like you have a very distinct sound behind what you do. So is there kind of like a blanket method behind the madness, or does each project or each song call for a new approach?
Well, I think first and foremost that Jim he knows what makes me tick, and he knows what I like. And I think his approach may be a little bit different than would be if he was writing for Fates Warning or for Ray's vocals. Now, I'm not really 100% sure on how Jim and Ray work together. I think, in the earlier days, Jim did the majority of the writing, as far as the music compositions as well as lyrics, and helped with melody lines. I'm under that understanding, and I could be wrong, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But I think, more recently, Ray has contributed more to the writing process with melody lines and lyric writing and stuff like that. So when it comes to Jim and I, it's always been the same. Jim writes musical compositions, and I am the lyricist, and I write all the melody lines to fit, what I'm trying to say and what fits the song. So since we work in that way, some people have said, they've made comments like, well, I wonder what, this song would have sounded like, with Ray on it, or, what I would sound like on something with Fates Warning. It would be completely different because, once I get involved with, my methods of madness or whatever, Jim and I, as being a vocalist, sometimes I'll get involved, most times I get involved with the writing process as well. Jim allows me to make suggestions for breathing room and for changes, and something's not quite hitting me with the way a chorus should, he'll rewrite the chorus for me. So there's a lot of that going on. So it's still the same process, but we both have our hands into everything. And same goes for, especially this album here, with my vocal melodies. I bring what I work on my own just as Jim works on his own as far as coming up with his music. And then as far as my melody lines, I work on that alone. I need a quiet, place where I can really get in touch with my, wherever I go for that inspiration.
Yeah.
But then, there were a few times on this album, too, where I want to word this carefully, but there were some things that maybe I would have gone in a different direction. I might have taken a melody line to a higher place or somewhere else, but, Jim said, hold on, man, I really liked what you did originally in original demos. It's much more, it's more tasteful. It really complements the music more. So then I'll agree to it, or I'll end up doing a hybrid of the two and end up with something better. So there's always this kind of shuffling going on and working together. We definitely have our definitive jobs per se, on what our contributions, but we trust each other enough where when we get into the studio and I bring things to the table and he brings things to the table, we may lock horns at times, I think, like everyone does, but in the end, there's always a compromise, and it seems like the compromise ended up being better than A or B would have been, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you have a major focus on the melody and your methodology behind trying to find that. What I'm curious is, because being a vocalist, there's melody that you have to follow and rhythm, but then there's also lyrics. Could the melody that you follow also maybe determine the lyrics that you write as well?
Oh, no question about it. Yeah, because the melody is very much part of timing and syncopation. What Jim is writing, or the instruments that are underneath that I'm listening to, that I'm singing over per se, and I don't mean to sound like I'm overshadowing anything, but the lyrics basically layered end up on top. But I'm listening to a lot of things. I'm listening to the melodies that are going on. I'm listening to the drums, the movements, how everything is going. And the lyrics are very much part of it because I like drums and I like syncopating and I like twisting and turning. And the way I sing, sometimes I like it to be intricate and sometimes I like it to be playful. Trying not to sing like something that would be what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like first hack, you know. I'll go over melody lines. It's you know, so for so long, and it's up until the last minute that I'm changing melody lines and changing lyrics. But they definitely do. There was a couple songs on this album that I actually had melody lines humming them along, like in Tethered. I had most of the melody lines finished, and I didn't even have a word for the song, but I had melody lines that I really liked, and that was my approach to that one. And then the lyrics came later, and I think it worked out really well. And there was another song, Straight and Narrow, where I had ideas. Lyrical ideas, even in the song title, but I had no music. So I asked Jim, I said, hey, could you write like a 5-minute ball-to-the-wall song, because I have some subject matter, and it's kind of semi-autobiographical about myself, and I have the song title, and I really have a good direction, and that's how Straight and Narrow came together. So, yeah, it's not all from the same template, you know. Sometimes things work out weird the way they do, but sometimes for the better.
I figure it's good to have the melody and the music first, because nothing could be more heartbreaking than having the perfect set of lyrics written down and then seeing how they go like 1 or 2 syllables over the actual arrangement or something like that. That's had to have happened, right?
Oh, are you kidding me? I live with a thesaurus and a dictionary, and I'm right, you know what I'm saying? Constantly changing. And I'll think of, you know, how can I say this better? What am I trying to say? And sometimes I'll end up with a 4-syllable perfect word that just absolutely fits, and it gives actually opens up the door for me to do a really cool melody line. So yes, what you hit on is exactly kind of the nuts and bolts of my style of writing. I'm always playfully dancing over what's going on underneath the music that's going on, and sometimes maybe to a fault. But like Tethered, that song, I had to stay in certain parameters for the betterment of the song, because you know, trying to do too much over that song or take it to a direction where it didn't belong, it wouldn't have done the song or Jim's writing any justice. So I tried my best to interpret that song the way Jim meant it when he was playing it, and try to compliment it rather than trying to over embellish things.
Yeah. And now I have 2 more questions for you. What I was curious is, being a vocalist and, you know, having great melody to support your lyrics, do you try to maybe convey a certain message to your listeners, or try to enlighten them on a certain subject, or do you like to leave your lyrics open to interpretation and open to their own emotions?
A little bit of both, and I never like to, you know, not preach per se. Any of my preconceived notions or beliefs, or those are mine, and I never tell anybody how to think, what to do. None of that. I respect, you know, everybody in their inner workings. But I must say, when I take an approach to a song that Jim has written, a composition, I listen to it over and over until I'm actually sick of it, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. Just getting so familiar with every nuance of the song, and if I close my eyes and I just kind of like almost get into almost a dream state where I'm almost half asleep, half awake. Sometimes it'll hit me. You know, what subject matter or something that might sound, you know, that would actually complement the song or be a good subject matter to write about. You know, like for instance, Kindred Spirits. I mean, that song, that, you know, 13-minute song, it's like, holy shit, what do I do here? How do I fill all this? And of course, that song was a building process where I was well into writing it, and we were still working on it. But you know what? It's just the way that song hit me, and all the movements in that song, and some things that I think that were subconscious that I had been seeing a lot of, and you know, the relationship between animals and humans. And, you know, the cruelty to animals and abuse and all of that stuff. I had that on my mind, and for some reason I started going in that direction, telling a storyline, and it ended up taking that turn, and I questioned myself, you know, is this kind of a cliche kind of topic to sing about, or is it not something I should touch? But I eventually just kind of like followed my own directions, and I said, you know what? I like this, and I like the direction it's going, and it's really a very emotional song, and the topic is just fitting it perfect, and that's and I ended up wording it in a way where it was a journey, and it wasn't a sad journey the whole time. It's actually a very happy journey that relates to our relationship with our animals, and I've had plenty of them, and how special and how giving and unconditional that kind of relationship, like sometimes humans can't give us, animals can. So I just kind of knew that it would touch a lot of people. Yeah. Because people love their animals and they have special relationships and kinships with them. So that's what Kindred Spirits ended up being, and I'm glad I stayed with that theme because I can't think of anything else that would fit better.
Yeah, and just because it's a cliche doesn't mean it isn't true. I mean, you know what I mean? So I think that's a really good subject matter to address. And you kind of just led me into my final question, because being that this record has various song lengths from 5.5 minutes to Kindred Spirits being 13 minutes and then Pitch Black Prism being 7 minutes, like, how do you know when a song is finished? I always love asking artists that.
Well, a foundation of a song for me, it has to come full circle for me. And it has to have content in it. And I believe, in the progressive realm of music, I think the song needs to have movements. They need to have breakaways, whereas you move away from, the root of the song, and you take a musical journey. And I think once everything also that I need to say has to be said, we've actually lengthened songs because I wasn't done.
Oh, really?
I wasn't done saying what I had to say. Well, fortunately, Kindred Spirits was plenty long enough for me to actually create a storyline and to come full circle with it. I think if something is left hanging and doesn't make any sense, then the song isn't complete. So, I think I know when the song is done is when I've said everything I needed to say, and we're musically, Jim as a music composer feels that his orchestrated piece has come to a climax.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I think those elements together make a complete song for me.
Yeah, I've always heard, like, a lot of artists would say, like, a song is complete when there's nothing left to take out or nothing left to add in. But I feel like you guys don't care what it has to be taken out or has to be. You just want to say what you have to say, and you don't care if the one song is going to be the length of an entire album.
Right. Yeah. Those perimeters are like, kind of not even in existence. It's all more by feel. It's all emotion, and it's all when we demo the song and we listen to it beginning to end. It's more or less sometimes what you don't play or what you never needed to admit anything. And luckily on all these songs, we made adjustments. I needed more breathing room. I needed maybe a longer chorus. I asked him to write different choruses, longer sections. But in the end, it was all for a purpose. It wasn't just to add, time onto it. It's because either musically it needed to take a turn of direction or make sense. Like if we were to come back to the root of the song, it's got to get back there properly. It just can't dead stop, and it needs to make that transition. So a lot of transitions, lyrically, musically, and again, full circle and make sense to the listener.
Awesome. Beautiful. So before we go, I'd like to thank you so much for your time. Is there just, we got Winter Ethereal coming out May 10th. Is there just anything else with this record cycle you would like to promote? Could we be expecting you guys to take this out on the road or anything else?
Yeah, well, right now, I promised Jim I would leave the on the road thing closed-ended. Right now. They're going back into the studio to write. I have made many promises that I need to be present personally in my life right now. At the age that I'm at, I got just a lot of aging in-laws, parents that are in trouble right now, and I need to be present for. So I need to do that. And I appreciate everybody understanding that. That means a lot to me. But I'd like to thank the fans. There is another upcoming video we just finished, one for Tethered, which will be released, the album release date, I think the 10th, and there's also going to be another song released very shortly called Wanderlust. So we'll keep those teasers going out there, and I hope everybody supports the album company, record company Metal Blade, and supports us as musicians, as bona fide artists that have spent a lot of our own money making this. Please buy the album if you would do so, and I hope you all enjoy it.
Yeah, gotta give credit to Metal Blade. They gave me my first shot at interviewing artists, so I mean,
they've been great. They're putting it out in so many different, all the formats, and the videos, and they're behind us 100%. So yeah, we have nothing but praise to say about our Metal Blade family that I've been with for 35 years. So nothing but props for Metal Blade.
Awesome.
Good people.
Yeah. Well, John, thank you so much. Everybody, we are here with John of Arch Matheos. Be sure to pick up Winter Ethereal out on Metal Blade Records May 10th. We'll see you next time on Heavy New York.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much.